When I was pregnant with my son, I would remark to my husband that the 9 or 10 months of pregnancy is a time of preparation for parenthood. Well, that first night in the hospital after our son's birth, we had no clue how to get our son to stop crying, and my husband and I looked at each other, and we realized we knew nothing about parenthood. 17 months later, as we have entered into toddlerhood, we still struggle. Though we have realized we may not always know what to do, we do know that we absolutely and deeply love our son. Parenthood is a journey which requires the parents to show compassion and love for someone completely dependent upon them. Today on Rosh Hashanah, we recall the story of a mother's deep love for her child and God's compassion upon both of them in their time of need. Hagar, Abraham and Sarah's handmaid, and Ishmael, Hagar and Abraham's biological son, were banished from their home by Abraham and Sarah. Sarah was angry that she was unable to bear children. Therefore, in her rage, she tells Abraham to banish Hagar and Ishmael. The biblical text remarks, "Early next morning, Abraham took some bread and water and he gave them to Hagar. He placed them over her shoulder together with the child and sent her away. And she wandered about in the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water was gone, Hagar left Ishmael under one of the bushes and went and sat down at a distance, a bow shot away, for she thought, 'Let me not look on as the child dies.' And sitting thus afar, she burst into tears. God heard Ishmael's cry, and a messenger of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, 'What troubles you, Hagar? Fear not, for God has heeded the cry of the boy where he is. Come, lift up the boy and hold him by the hand, for I will make a great nation of him.' Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. She went and filled the canister with water, and she let the boy drink." Hagar was despaired by her son's illness. God heard her cries, and God showed compassion upon Hagar and Ishmael. A feminist midrash shares a possible reason for Hagar pushed Ishmael away when she believed he was going to die. As it is written, she sat down at a distance, a bow shot away, for she thought, 'Let me not look on as the child dies.' Is that any way for a mother to act? Too often, parents find themselves in this position, powerless to save their children from the angel of death. We can't blame Hagar for averting her eyes and ears from Ishmael's death rattle. Is it not difficult to endure a child's death, even at a distance, away at war, on an operating table, or on a mountaintop beneath a father's knife? Perhaps it's only that distance that releases Hagar's tears and summons God's help. Had she remained close to Ishmael, she might have been too paralyzed by his suffering to call out at all. Sometimes it's our children speaking from where they are who teach us how to see what we need to survive, and child's tears reach the heavens. Today, we notice that God is a compassionate parent to all of us. God was compassionate to Hagar and Ishmael in the wilderness. God is compassionate to her people of Israel as we depend on her for our basic necessities, proper guidance, and never-ending love. During the days of awe, we contemplate our relationship with God, our parents, and our children through the value of rachamim, compassion. God is a compassionate parent to all of us every day. We are reminded when we recite God's 13 attributes during the Chagim, the holidays, that God is kind, compassionate, and forgives our iniquities. God heard Hagar's cry, and she sheltered and healed Hagar and Ishmael in the desert. God also provided the basic necessities to the Israelites in the wilderness for 40 years. Rabbinic Jewish tradition generally states that God's compassion and love for her children Israel is clear by her chosenness of us. God promises to provide our people wealth, prosperity, and continued growth. These blessings are incumbent on our continued devotion and service to God. This relationship provides the space for a continued devotion to one another for every generation to come. While we seek God's compassion in our day-to-day lives, it might be challenging to see it when we experience pain and suffering. Those who are ill request healing, those who are grieved request comfort, and those who are lonely request love. We ask in these moments of turmoil, where are you, O compassionate God? God's compassion is present in our moments of communal worship, conversations with one another, and miracles that are impossible to reason. Every Shabbat service, I hear our congregation pray for the healing and strength for those they love and our community members. I see our members call, bring food, and hug each other to remind each person that they are loved and not alone. I witness our community members live out the teachings of our Jewish tradition by helping one another through different service projects coordinated by our temple or community partners. In all of these moments, God's compassion is ever present. And if we look a little closer, we can see all of God's miracles bestowed upon us every day. Rachamim, compassion, is sought in our moments of guilt, shame, or sadness. It is a trait we seek from our parents. Rachamim is a warm, loving, gentle space. The word itself shares the root with rechem, which means womb. Both the womb and the attribute of compassion provide each person a space to grow and protection. We request and expect compassion from our parents, like we request and expect God to show compassion to her chosen people, Israel. In turn, we can show rachamim, compassion, to our parents as they continue to be a part of our lives. As our parents cared and nurtured us in our youth, we can care for them in their advanced years by assisting them in their living, maintaining communication with them, and sharing stories with one another. If our parents are no longer alive, we can live out their memories by upholding their teachings they shared with us in our youth. We can remember their yahrzeit and keep their memory alive by sharing their stories with our children or youth in our community. It is also meaningful to support a cause in their name that reminds us of them. Dr. Wendy Mogul shares in her book, The Blessing of a Skinned Knee, Torah teaches there are three partners in the creation of a person: God, the Father, and the Mother. When a person honors the parents, God says, I consider it as though I lived with them and they honored me. On this earthly plane, parents are the holy stand-ins. By revering them, children have an opportunity to show their reverence for God. Honoring parents at home also helps children make the leap from family to community. It is a way to grow a civilized society. We are commanded to honor and respect our parents. When we do so, we are honoring God and showing compassion upon those who raised us. While for some it might seem easier to respect and honor a parent who has always shown compassion throughout their life, however, it might be challenging to honor a parent or parents who did not provide a compassionate space for their child to thrive in during the different points of their life. In some unfortunate instances, a parent will use their power to bully, torment, and abuse their child. These actions might lead to trauma and/or mental health illnesses for the child. Parents are people too, and like some people, they can exhibit negative traits that harm or sour their relationships with their children. How are we to honor and show compassion to a parent who is abusive? Our Jewish text, Kiddushin, remarks on how far someone needs to go in order to honor their parents. Rabbi Eliezer says in this text, such a father takes his son's bag and throws the bag into the sea in front of his son. The son does not react in front of his father. That is enough to honor the father. According to this teaching, those who are a victim of abuse from a parent, if able, must remove themselves from the parent and from the situation. Removing oneself from the situation will prevent a disrespectful reaction. It may even be recommended for the individual, if one is able to leave the parent completely and avoid contact with them in the case of an abusive parent. Usually, it may only be adult children of abusive parents who are able to remove themselves from the abusive situation or completely leave the parent. Therefore, it is possible that the commandment to honor our parents in general was not directed towards young children, but rather it was directed towards grown adults. An unknown author wrote the following: "Caring for the frail and infirm can be exhausting and enervating, and the Torah worries about the all-too-human temptation to abandon them. The fifth commandment thus focuses on the mature person, no longer under the control of parents, and now probably stronger than they are in every way. Adults who care for their aging parents are in a position of power. Therefore, it is important for the adult child to honor and show compassion when possible to their parents." God shows compassion for Israel. We show compassion towards our parents when possible. And it is crucial for all of us to show compassion towards our children and youth as they develop and experience the world around them. In parenthood, one witnesses the paradigm in which acts of service, reciprocal love, and compassion are experienced. According to Mara Benjamin, author of The Obligated Self, the parent is the one who provides service to the infant or child in order to cultivate a loving and long-lasting relationship. Benjamin writes, "For some people, the daily, material, emotionally variable work of being responsible for another person provides the soil in which parental love can grow, and the repetitive cycle of daily care can promote intimate attunement, pleasure, and appreciation." If we can go further with what Benjamin wrote, we can suggest that a continued service to someone can cultivate a holy relationship in which compassion and love will grow and thrive. It might be challenging to be compassionate to our children and youth 100% of the time. Infants and toddlers require a whole lot of attention. Our schedules, like meals, activities, and even sleep, are dictated by the needs of our young children. School-age children will push boundaries and push our buttons as they witness the different limits of each environment they are exposed to. For example, the rules they abide to in sports may not translate to home rules. Vis-a-vis, their home rules may not work in the classroom. When our children reach young adulthood, the rules they once lived by may be more lenient, and now as autonomous individuals, they might make their own decisions. They might pursue hobbies and activities of their choosing, might make good and bad decisions, or challenge the status quo and current rules put in place. Our youth are investigating who they are now and who they want to be. Let us provide our children the space to discover who they are and who they want to be, even if it might challenge us in the moment. Dr. Mogul reminds us, "Your child is not your masterpiece. According to Jewish thought, your child is not even truly yours. In Hebrew, there is no verb for possession. The expression we translate as to have, yesh li, actually means it is there for me, or there is for me. Although nothing belongs to us, God has made everything available on loan and has invited us to borrow it to further the purpose of holiness. This includes our children. They are a precious loan, and each one has a unique path towards serving God. Our job is to help them find out what it is." We can look to our children, our youth, for hope and the people who will carry out our memories when we are no longer here. We can cultivate relationships of respect with them, and we can show compassion to them in their moments of need, mistakes, or shortcomings. Providing forgiveness and a space to learn for our youth It's the first step to being compassionate and resembling the relationship God has for God's people, Israel, during the days of awe. This new Jewish year, let us be reminded of the compassion we all deserve. May we know that God is a compassionate parent to all of Israel, and we have the ability to implement this attribute of rachamim upon our children, youth, parents, and friends. May we live each day showing compassion to ourselves as we continue to grow and learn as individuals within our community. Amen and Shana Tova.
Amen.